Alright, so today we're going to be working with 271 encode and decode strings, which is a premium question. And for this question, you're getting an algorithm, right? And then you want to encode a list of strings into a string. And pretty much you're just grabbing the list of strings. And for this question, I'm going to use the example apple and banana. This is what you're inputted. These are the list. This is the list of strings. And so you want to encode it into a singular string. And so this encoded string is then sent over to this decoded function, which then decodes it back to the original list of strings. And how we're going to make this question work is we want to encode the strings, and to make it easier for the decode function to decode it, we want to put the length at the beginning, right? So this is how what we're going to return. So essentially we're going to return the length of this string, right, the first string, which is 5, and we want to have a delimiter in between the length and the actual string. So in this case, we're going to use pound, right, and we want to return one big string. So the length of banana is 6, and we want to return a delimiter and then the actual string. So pretty much we're encoding it like this. And this makes it easier for us to decode it, which I'll show in a little bit. And how we're going to do this, it's pretty simple. So we want to return an encoded string over here, right? So let's do this. That's pretty much, we can start with a list for now, right? And this encoded string, pretty much we want to grab every single string inside of this array, inside of this list. So we want to do this by in strings. I'm going to do this like this, right? So this is looping through every single string inside of strings. And pretty much you want to put this, you want to put the encoded version into this list. So encoded string. And since we don't want to, let's say we do equals to and then the code, right? This would essentially, like every time you loop through it, it would replace whatever's inside of it. So instead we want to append to the list. And how we're going to do this is we want to append. So first we want to append the length of the string, so length of s. Then we want to add the pound sign, which is the delimiter, right? And then we want to add the string. Now these are strings, but this is an integer, so we want to transform this into a string as well, and we can do this easily with Python like this. And pretty much this is just returning this, right? Actually, this is not returning this. This is actually returning this, right? Since it's in a list. So pretty much what this is doing is let's say you have a string banana apple, right? You get the length, the pound, and the string, and then it adds it to this list, and then it does it like that. Then you loop again with banana, and it does this. And then essentially what we want to do with this is we want to return it into one single string, and you do this by using the join method that Python provides. And this is the join method, so join, right? You want to join the encoded string. Now, what this is doing is it's joining the strings inside of this iterable list, right? With no space in between. And then now this is returning this, right? It gets rid of the space in between and it turns it from a list into a string. Right, so let's make this a little cleaner. And pretty much that's what we have so far. That's the encoded, that's how this method works. Now, we want to grab this string, right? We want to grab this and churn it back into how it was at the beginning, which was a list of apple and then banana. This is our end goal. And pretty much we want to do what we did before, but kind of in reverse in a way, where we have the decoded strings, right? And this is a list. this is what we're going to end up returning. We're going to put the decoded strings. Let's say we decode this, and then we're going to put it into the decoded strings list, right? Apple into decoded strings, and then after we decode this, we're going to put banana into decoded strings. Now we're going to have I is set to 0, so we have a way to like loop through it. And we're going to do so while I is less than the length of strings. Now the length of string, and essentially string is this long string. So this is S. For decode, this is S. And this is the entire length. So while we just go through the entire string, we keep going. And so essentially what we want to do is we want to set J is equal to I. Now, why are we doing this? Right now, J and I are both here. And we want to find this pound sign so we know where to differentiate between the length and the actual word, right? So that's why we're doing this. We want to have a second pointer. So now we want to find this pound sign. And how are we going to find this pound sign? So inside while S, right? So inside of S, the string S, this, we're at J. So while J is not the pound sign, so we're looking for the pound sign, right? We want to add 1 to J, plus equals 1. So we keep going, and once we get to the pound sign, we stop this loop, right? And now what do we want to do? We want to get the length of this string and assign it to a variable, so then we're able to loop through this. Now, it sounds more complicated than it actually is, so then let's try to code it up, right? So we finish looping through this. Now we get outside, and let's use n as the variable that wants to hold this length, right? And essentially, we want to do it like this. So the string s, we want to grab the string, right? We're going to grab the string from I to J, not including J. Now, what is this doing? I is here and J is at pound, right? And it's not including J, so we're just grabbing 5. And that's pretty much what this is doing. So we're starting I0, and then pound is over here. Oops. So I is here, and then pound is literally one right over, but we're not including pound, so it's just we're holding 5. Now, this is a string. We don't want a string. We want an integer to hold the length. So essentially what this n is, it's the length, right? The length of the following string, which is apple. And now that we have the length, we want to do J plus 1, plus equals 1. Why? Because we want to move it from the pound sign to the start of the string, and the start of the string is A. Now we're set up. Now we have the length, and then we have the entire string ready to iterate through because we have the length. Now, what are we going to do next? We want to add the decoded string into this list, right? So we decode it and then add it here. And how do we do this? Pretty much how we did it before, which, let's do this, which is decoded strings, right? And since we don't want to like override the previous variable, we do append. So let's say we added banana or apple before, and then to avoid overriding it, we're gonna use append. So we're just adding to the list instead of replacing the previous variable. So we use append. And what are we appending? We are appending from apple, from A, and then to the length. We're appending to the length, but not including the length. So one before the length. In this case, the length is 5, so we're at A, right? We're at A. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But since we don't want to include the length for the next string, we go one before. So pretty much just from, here you go, I'll show you. So we append, so from S, right now J is at A. So we want to go from J to J plus the length, but not including the last number. So essentially J is at A, J is at A, and we want to go 5, but not including the length. So the length 5, so essentially apple. Now we have apple. We grabbed apple and we're appending it to this, right? And we're pretty much done here, except now, after we grab the first one, what do we want to do? We want to set I to the length, or I to the length of the next one. So we keep going through it. We keep looping, and we keep decoding the next strings, if there is a next string. So we want to set pretty much what we did here, right? We want to set I is equal to j plus n, but this is including n. Here, it's just j to n, not including, j to j plus n, not including j plus n. But here we are including it. And then after you're pretty much done. Now you just return the decoded strings, which is the array. And let's run it. Let's see, what do we have here? What did we mess up on? We have join, return, join, encoded string. All right, so we fixed this, and then we should run it. It was pretty much just the indentation. And then now here, decoded string, it's because it's decoded strings. All right, it's accepted, and let's submit this. And there you go. Pretty much the only errors we had at the end was that this was indented wrong, but that's just Leetcode being weird. And then here we just missed an S. But that's pretty much it. This is how it runs, and that is 271 encode and decode strings premium question.